Eddie, morning to you. I want to start with the Champions League draw. Paris Saint-Germain, Borussia Dortmund, AC Milan. When you saw it, what was your reaction?
No, I think it took me a few seconds to process it. I think you're looking at it and you're trying to fully understand, because the draw was actually quite complex. I didn't realise it was that complicated to figure out what was going on. And yeah, I think when the dust settles down, I think you look at it and with pure excitement, really. There's no negativity from any of us internally towards the draw. I think it's hard, it's challenging, but I think some great European games for us to experience, some great places to visit for our supporters, and the travel distance isn't too bad either. And I think that when you add it all together, I think it's been a great thing.
Have you seen or spoken to Sandro Tonali since the draw? He's going to be going back to his old club.
Yes, I have, and I think it's a great thing for him, because I just hope that he gets the reception that he deserves, and for what he did for the football club and how much he loves AC Milan. I think it'd be a great thing for him. I'm sure he's looking forward to the game. We didn't really go into too much detail, but I think he was pleased to experience going back home.
You've acknowledged the scale of the challenge, playing some of the giants of European football, but how much of an opportunity is it for you to showcase what you can do at that level, at the very top of club football?
Yeah, I think the mentality for us, I think it doesn't matter who we play, there has to be a sort of an attitude of no fear, no doubts. Let's embrace everything that's going to bring, and it will challenge us hugely. Those teams have played in Europe for many years, and they've excelled. So yeah, no doubts about the size of the challenge, but yeah, bring it on. That has to be how we feel, and that's what I encourage my players to think, and I think it's exciting.
And just going back to what you said about the travel times and the distances involved in the 3 away matches, you can get to all those places flying from Newcastle in certainly less than 3 hours in all cases. So why is that important for you in terms of your preparation and also getting back for the Premier League games at the weekends?
Well, firstly, I think it's a great thing for our supporters that they're not travelling too far as well. But for us, I think it's, of course, you're thinking of the next game, you're thinking back to the Premier League. We're not adjusting to different time zones. We're not travelling for too long. These things matter. The gap between matches is small, and we need to get the players recovered. So that is definitely a bonus.
Moving on, how is Sven Botman following his injury against Liverpool?
Yeah, Sven's he's had a scan. The ankle, the scan doesn't appear too good. So there is definitely an injury there. But actually it presents okay. It's not presenting too bad. It's very bruised, a little bit swollen. So he's been very lightly jogging this week. We're going to see how he is today and make a decision for this weekend.
So there is a chance that he could make the squad for Brighton?
There's a small chance, yes. We're going to see how he is today.
Are you likely, whether it's in response to the situation with Sven Botman or other factors, to be active in the transfer market today in terms of incomings?
No, unfortunately.
You mentioned Joe Linton had a knee issue as well last weekend. Is he available for you at Brighton?
Again, another player that we're going to make a late decision on. So he hasn't trained this week, very similar to Sven. He's done some light jogging. He feels better with each day. We'll make a late call.
Just a couple more from me on the football. It was an agonising way to lose last weekend. What sort of week have you had as you try to process it and also look forwards to Brighton and prepare for another big one on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it was painful. There's no denying that for me, for the team, for everybody connected with Newcastle. That was a sort of bittersweet game, really, because I thought we played really well for definitely the majority of the first half. Really, the second half was tough, although there was good bits in it. And I think the usual process for me, I have to watch the game very quickly. I have to try and find the things that I'm looking for, and then you always, in football, you have to move on very quickly because the games come thick and fast. And if you dwell in any result for too long, it can never be a good thing, whether that's a win or a loss. So move on and look to the future.
And Brighton was so impressive last season, a clear style of play and seemingly very difficult for a lot of teams to play against. What are you expecting from them this weekend?
Yeah, I think they're a very interesting team. I think Roberto's done an amazing job. He's a very unique coach in the way that he gets his teams to play. Not many or any coaches I've seen sort of like him, and the style of play is very good. Very ball dominated, very clever with how they set their teams up, and yeah, he deserves a lot of credit. His players deserve a lot of credit for what they've done, for what they achieved last year, and they've started this season well.
Is it ankle ligaments for Sven? Is that
Yes, it is. It's ankle, yeah.
Yeah. And you said just a moment ago there, Teresa, that no, unfortunately, there'll be no new players coming in. In an ideal situation, would you have liked to perhaps look to bring someone in last day?
No, what I meant by is sort of slightly tongue-in-cheek. I think we knew when we signed Lewis that we weren't going to do any more business. That was going to be us, unless, obviously there was a crisis in terms of positions, and you were able to act. But with Sven's injury, it's one injury, and we don't think it's too bad. So we hope we get him back pretty quickly. And our squad depth is okay. I think we're a lot stronger than we were last year in terms of numbers, and that's what the squad's for, is to cater for these injuries.
The transfer window, even the transfer week, these last few days has been crazy. A lot of teams doing business, transferring between themselves. You seem to have been fairly settled for a couple of weeks, as you allude to there. How content are you with the situation and how quickly you've done your business?
Yeah, I think the transfer window's been very slow initially. I think during the summer months there wasn't a lot of action. I think it's definitely quickened up as we've gone closer to the deadline. Seems like a lot of late action, as you say, a lot of clubs then willing to trade. I think for us it's just been the kind of window where we were able to get the targets in that we wanted, and we've been quite settled, and there'll be no late moves for us. So I think I've said previous weeks, you can only tell the strength of a window in time, but as I sit here now, I'm pleased.
You spoke about the Champions League drop. When you were watching it last night, and trying not to get confused like the rest of us.
I'm glad it wasn't only me, Keith.
Yeah, I know. Were you? Did you honestly want the biggest teams possible, the hardest draws, or would you prefer a more favourable draw? Because on paper that was probably as hard as you could have got.
Yeah, I tend not to want anything. My attitude to these things, we'll get who we get, and there's no preconceived idea in my mind of what I'm looking for. So very relaxed. It was the same for the Carabao Cup draw, although that one was, we couldn't have got a harder draw really. But I'm very relaxed about it. That's who we have, and that's who we've got to try and beat. And let's try and figure out how we're going to do it.
I'll get on to the Carabao Cup draw in a minute, but
sorry, I've stolen your thunder.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But when you saw the teams pulled out yesterday, and you realise who you're going to be up against, did it almost kind of bring home the magnitude of what you achieved as a team next season? And for the player, the supporters, they would have been so excited seeing that yesterday. For the players as well, thinking they're going to be up against some of these world stars, the likes of Mbappe at PSG. Did it kind of bring it home to you what you achieved? Yeah,
I think it brings it home that there's a lot of talk about the Champions League, but it sort of wasn't not real, but we didn't know who we were playing, we didn't know what group we're in, and so there's a lot of unknowns. Now there's we have a target in mind, we have the games in mind, and that starts to then bring you to visualise it really, and I think that can only be a healthy thing. But for us, and I'm going to sort of dampen it down, but the Premier League is huge for us, and we still have games before the Champions League starts. So the Champions League really only come into my focus when it's our next game. For me now, it's all about Brighton, and then of course Brentford.
Yeah, it's been some weekend of cup draws, as you alluded to there. What did you make of what came out after the EFL Cup draw, when it appeared that Newcastle and Norwich were on the wrong balls, and you would have perhaps faced Fulham rather than Man City?
I'm not sure what to think really. Just laugh about it. There's not a lot you can do. Couldn't make it up really, could we? It's just, yeah.
One of those weeks.
One of those weeks that, and one of those seasons for us. The start of the fixture list was very, very difficult in the Premier League, and we're being tested, and we're playing the top teams. But I always think that makes you better anyway. Playing against the elite teams brings your own game on. So hopefully it's a good thing for us at the start of this season.
Just last one from me, sort of on a more serious note. Video emerged last Sunday of Jamal Lascelles, what looked like him to be involved in an incident in town a week or so ago. As a manager, what have you made of that, and what will the club be doing?
Well, firstly, the club will be dealing with everything internally. I think a couple of things really. The first thought was Jamal's safety, the safety of his family, was absolute paramount. We believe that he was sort of an innocent in the starting of what happened, and he was acting as peacemaker for what happened. I think that the other thing to say on that is that we would prefer, obviously, our players aren't out in the city centre in the early hours. I think that's natural from my side. But as I say, going back to the first point, is the safety of Jamal was paramount. He's okay, and I think his brother's okay.
Morning, Eddie. Just, I won't dwell on the Liverpool game because I know you won't want to either. It's all right. But you mentioned watching it back. What was it like watching it back on a human level? You mentioned how painful it was to watch it in real time, but watching it back can't have been easy.
No, I think from my side, I'm always looking at it through the eyes of my team and what we need to do better in that moment. And it's very easy afterwards to come up with loads of solutions. It's in the moment. I think probably the biggest lesson for us was that we maybe we were too safe at 1-0 and wanted to keep the ball in front of Liverpool, and that was never going to be the answer, because then with 10 minutes to go, if it's still 1-0, the game's very, very open. So for us, of course, the determination was to try and make it 2, and to keep attacking in the way that we were 11v11. But you're dealing with humans and human psychology, and that's very easy to say but very difficult to deliver. Hence why I made the subs, really. I made the subs in a determination to try and win the game, to try and be more positive. I was a little bit concerned with our play in that second half. But I think it's all learnings for us. It's all early season stuff to improve. I think that the positive to take out of the game is how competitive we were 11v11. I thought we were excellent. And another sign of how far we've come, and the crowd are in the game, the crowd are excellent for us. It was a really good feeling around the stadium, and you sort of struggle to remember that when you leave the ground with the feeling that you do, but I think we have to.
Keith alluded to it there, but Man City in the Carabao Cup, then PSG, Dortmund, Milan in the Champions League, all within the space of 48 hours of each other. Are these the sort of fixtures that Newcastle United as a club is made for? And how many ladders have you walked under recently?
Well, yeah, I don't look at it like that. I don't think you can. You always have to find the positive in every situation. Very much like that, while being very firmly realistic, which I feel I am. The cup draws you can't control, and if they are difficult on paper, then the reality is they're likely to be difficult in reality. But we have to respond in kind, and we have to improve, and we have to be competitive, and we have to find ways to win. That's the job we're in. I fully believe that we can do that. I've got no doubts if we're at our best. And that is the challenge for us, to find our very best levels, because we're going to need to.
I know your focus will be on the Premier League imminently, of course, but I know Dan said that he'll be singing the Champions League anthem in his head. Bruno said he'll probably be crying when he hears that anthem at St James's Park for the first time. What do you think you'll be like when you hear that anthem ring out at St James's Park?
Genuinely, I probably won't hear it, because you've got to believe me, I'm thinking so many things at the same time. You're having to process so much information and then trying to use that to help your team. So in that moment before the game, I'm not listening to the Champions League music, believe me, and sort of enjoying the tune. I'm trying to help my team.
Away from football slightly, there's been a lot of talk via the documentary about this prospective Adidas deal. The supporters are buzzing about it, the town's buzzing about it. I think there's been a fair amount of advertising being done in the last 24 hours. Can you understand the supporters' excitement about something like that, given how synonymous with style Adidas were with Newcastle in the 90s and what you can remember of it?
Am I able to talk about it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I can, because I think it brings back memories, and positive memories for the supporter base. And I think when you have positive connotations with things from the past, I think that helps then generate excitement for the future. So I think... I think that's a great thing, because I think you want positivity at all times. You want the supporters to feel aligned with the decision making from the football club, and I think this is a really positive step.
Just a couple of quick final ones. Kieran Trippier was named in the Team of the Year. How long can Kieran keep producing the same sort of standards that he's still producing now, because he's still at such a high level?
Yeah, I think he can do this for as long as he wants to. I think the beauty of Kieran's game is that he's an all-rounder, very, very good footballer, and he's highly intelligent as well. And I think they're two great attributes for longevity in your career. He's playing in a very demanding position. The modern day fullback has so many challenges. Physically, he's still very good. He's got to look after his body to the best of his ability. But I think he started the season really well.
I just found the one on Brighton. Obviously, every single year they seem to sell players, but then they seem to reinvent themselves. How good for the Premier League at Brighton, and how good for football at Brighton in the manner that they do things?
Yeah, I think they've been brilliant for the Premier League, because I think the way that they've played the game under Graham Potter and now under Roberto De Zerbi has been a breath of fresh air, really, because I think they've done it a really certain style, a certain way. Very, very good football team, really good to watch, very attack-minded, and they've surprised people. But I think that surprise is hard to maintain. I've been there at a similar-sized club to try and keep doing that year on year, and that's where they deserve the credit for the consistency that they've been able to produce. And as you say, while still selling players, which again is very difficult to do and continue to be successful, so they deserve a lot of credit.
Thanks, Anthony.
Eddie, I was just listening to a discussion on the way in actually about the increased use of artificial intelligence in the Premier League in terms of spotting players and signing players. Brighton and Brentford are right up there. Is that something that Newcastle are going to be sort of banking on leaning on more in the next few years? Because it seems to be where it's heading.
Yeah, it does. I think both those clubs that you mentioned have been excellent in the transfer market. They've been at the forefront, really, of trying to find players around the world that, for cheap prices, young players, and then develop them and turn them into Premier League players, and in Brighton's case, selling them on for huge sums of money. So it's a really good model. I think in order for you to be able to deliver that yourself, you need the unique tools that they have to enable themselves to find the talent. We don't necessarily have that luxury yet. We don't have the means to be able to do that. Hopefully in the future we will, because I think it's something that every football club is probably looking at with envy, really. Having the resource to be able to, as you say, pick players before they're known to the wider world is a real talent.
And you think that in the sort of foreseeable future we might actually see the end of the actual physical scout?
I don't think so. I still think you need an opinion from the manager, the coaches, the recruitment team. I do think that's still a vital part of recruitment, because statistics and that model of recruiting tells you one part, but I do believe there's another part that still needs to be judged. So I hope I never lose touch of signing players, because I think ultimately my eyes are so important, because I'm going to have to build the relationship with the player. I'm going to have to love the player, develop the player, and I think I would still definitely need that that side of it.
Yeah, the human
Absolutely.
Just in terms of the Champions League draw, were you all together with the players, or were you by yourself, or how did it happen?
Yeah, I was at the training ground and watched the draw with my staff.
And what was their sort of, I know you like to kind of keep a lid on everything, what was their kind of response to the draw?
There was a bit of silence for about an hour. No, there's a bit of silence for about 10 seconds, and that was good. Enjoyed it.
And have you seen the players to get their response to it yet? Or, I mean, apart from Tonali, who you mentioned before?
Well, I've seen them this morning, so I'm sure there'll be discussions about it. But I think the main thing for us is that we're focused very much on Brighton. The Champions League now is done, the draw's done, but we're minds fully focused on the Premier League.
Thanks, Donald. Simon at the back.
And the game against Brighton towards the end of last season at St James's Park was an excellent game. It was also fascinating tactically. Are you looking forward to going again in that side of it against Roberto?
Yeah, I think every game now is fascinating tactically for me, because in my opinion the Premier League has the best coaches in the world, and I think every week you're tested, and your team's tested, and how you deliver what you're trying to deliver, and they're trying to hurt you, you're trying to hurt them, and you've got to find solutions both ways. Enjoyed going against Roberto last year, enjoyed playing against them pre-season as well. Very, very fascinating team to play against, because as I say, there's no one else quite like them, I don't think, in world football. So it'll be an intriguing battle.
You're coming off Liverpool, you're coming off a trip to Manchester City, you're coming off Aston Villa, you've got the League Cup draw, you've got the Champions League draw. These are all higher mountains you're being asked to scale all the time. Firstly, how exhausting is it to always have to climb higher? But secondly, is it one of the great privileges of the job to be asked to do that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about climbing mountains, I think that's what we have to do on a regular basis. You have to be motivated to improve, to grow, and it's only by going against the toughest, the best, that I do think you grow the quickest. So I think that's how we're looking at these challenges that await us. But of course, we want to climb them successfully, and that's the biggest challenge.
Any questions from the floor, Damien?
Just going back to Champions League, given where you started in your managerial career, what will it mean to you personally to send your team out against three of Europe's biggest names?
Yeah, I think it will be, for me, it will be maybe something at the end of my career when I look back and think differently about it. I think now when I'm in full in the battle, as it were, you don't have time to really reflect and analyse on what's happened in my career. It's just, believe me, I know I've been managing what seems like a long time, but the reality seems very different. It feels you're on sort of autopilot all the time, and things are going so quickly. So maybe at the end of my career, I look back and feel sort of the effects of what's happened.
After the draw last night, I don't know whether you saw Owen Howe said, if you get it right, you can win the group. Do you have to believe that as a manager and players? I
think you have to believe that, yeah. I'm not necessarily sure that should be the expectation, but I think we can. I'll let other people talk about sort of what can and can't happen. All I'm really focused on is what we can do internally, and that's be our best. And so I go back to the Liverpool game. For a long part of that game, I thought we were really, really good, and you can still lose the game against high quality opposition if you switch off for a couple of moments like we did. So we're going to be feeling those effects again against elite teams, that we're going to have to be concentrated and our best right through the game to win.
Thanks. We've got Jordan and Ian.
What's the situation with potential outgoings today?
Yeah, I'm not too sure really, in a sense that I know there's probably a couple of players that might move, a couple of young lads might move to get experience and develop their careers, but I'll be focused on the preparations for Brighton. Really.
And just one this week, is it true that Matt Targett has attracted interest from all the Premier League clubs, and if so, how has he reacted to that?
Well, I don't know about that. I think for me, Matt's an integral part of what we're doing, so there'll be no part of me that will want to lose it.
Yeah. Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Last season, in the build-up to the Carabao Cup final, your form did dip, and I think a few weeks later you said that in hindsight, with all the best intentions, it was very hard to stay focused. Now you've got these huge games coming up. What have you learned from that period, and is there a danger it could happen again that a player has got a, inverted commas, run-of-the-mill league game 3 or 4 days before a trip to Milan or Paris?
I don't think we can ever consider the Premier League a run-of-the-mill.
Of course.
But I get your sentiment. Yeah, I think my thought on the Carabao Cup final last year and our results around it, I do think there was just a lot of distractions for the players. I certainly didn't feel distracted, but I think for the players it was very difficult. A lot of noise around the games, and you're right. That will be the same for the Champions League and around those games we have in the Premier League. There'll be a lot of noise, even just the preparation for those games, the reactions to results, and then we have a game very quickly afterwards. So I think for me and the team, it's about not dwelling on any result for too long. When you have a lot of games in quick succession, I think that's absolutely key. And that doesn't necessarily mean a negative result. It could be a positive result, exactly the same feeling. We have to move on very quickly. We have to focus on the next challenge, and we have to try and get used to that rhythm, which will be new for us. So that's why this season is a real test for us.
And in your opinion, the Premier League is still number one?
Yeah, well, very difficult for me to sit here and go, it's number one or this is number two. I'm going to get criticised whatever I say on that. But for me, the Premier League and your own league is where you're truly judged, because it's the most number of games, and your position after the end of that season is a true reflection of how well you've done in that season. So for me, our league form is paramount. We have to focus on the Premier League. It's our next challenge now as I sit here. when the Champions League becomes our next game, that's when that will get all our focus. But yeah, the Premier League is key.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks, Ian. We'll go Donald and then Luke. Still another week before the Saudi Pro League transfer window closes. Is that a concern at all? Maybe not so much for you, but for the club, given the spending power of that league?
That's not something really I've considered, I have to be honest. Our squad is settled. I expect our squad to stay together, and certainly we couldn't afford to lose anybody.
And just Javier Manquillo, he's been injured, linked with a move away. Is he someone you expect to have available for Brighton tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, at this moment in time, as I said, I'm focusing on the next game. I don't know quite what's happening with every transfer out, but hopefully we can keep Javier.
Hi Eddie.
Hello.
How long did it take you from, you said, alluded to there was initially a bit of, wow, that's the teams we've got in the Champions League. How quickly did your brain shift to, we're not here for this enjoyment, we're not here for that? It's not an adventure for you, is it? It's business.
Yeah, probably about, as I said, 10 seconds to process it, and then to go, right, okay, that's what we've got. Let's make the best of this group of games that we have. There's loads of different ways you can look at a draw like that. You can look at it negatively, you can look at it positively, you can look at it romantically. Certainly the romance for me is not there, because we're here to do a job and we're here to try and represent the club in the best way and make our supporters proud. You only can do that with a really good work ethic and thorough preparation, so that will have already started.
And how do you assess your start to the season so far? 3 really tough games, but 2 defeats. You only suffered 5 defeats all last season. It's been 2 in August. How do you assess that, and where do you feel you are as a team at the moment?
Yeah, mixed really. I think on one hand, some really good bits in our performances. You look at, again, crude stats, which we do, XG, we're really good in both phases, in and out of possession. But we've got 3 points out of 3 games, and for us, we're a little bit frustrated because we feel we should have had more points from the 3 games that we've had. Maybe not so much Manchester City, but certainly Liverpool and Aston Villa. Yeah, I mean, obviously 5 defeats against 2 doesn't look particularly good at this stage, but we drew a lot of games last year, and I think that may help us as the season goes on, that we can maybe turn more of those draws that we got last year into wins. And I still think we have to be very positive. There's still so much of the season to go and a lot to happen.
We'll go Jason and then Oscar.
Hi Eddie, just given the incident with Jamal, do you think the city centre has to become a bit of a no-go zone for your players, really?
Unfortunately, probably yes. In this day and age, I think with the amount of games we have this year anyway, yeah, I'm not sure that that's where we should be as a group of players, staff, in the early hours, just purely with the games and the profile of the players now and what we have this season. So probably you're right. I'd probably say no.
That's rather sad, isn't it? But it's just a reflection of modern society. Isn't it?
Well, possibly. I think it'd be nice, in theory, for us to be able to be in the city centre with our people, really. But the reality is, it's probably not the best place for us to exist late at night.
Thanks.
Oscar.
Eddie, have you ever been to the PSG, AC Milan or Borussia Dortmund stadium?
Yeah, I've been to all 3 actually.
Yeah.
So on scouting missions over the years, and yeah, they're amazing stadiums, and it'd be an absolute privilege to, well, not for me to perform there, but for the players to perform there and me to manage.
A lot of people will already be writing you off, but don't those 3 clubs have as much to fear facing your side?
Well, I think we're a tough opponent to face, home or away. I think if I was preparing to play, my team, it would be totally different to obviously me being leading the team. And I think, yeah, you're right. I think we have weapons, we can pose teams problems. So there's always another way to look at it, and that's what I was trying to say earlier to some of the questions. Is there's no negativity from our side. There's only positivity, because we know that when we're right, we can be a match for anybody.
We've got Lee and Martin.
Eddie, on Sunday was a stage of the game where a point would have been a good result, and is there anything you can do to lock that down in games? Or you're always looking to go for big 3?
Yeah, no, I understand the question. I think probably when they scored the first goal, a point might not have been a bad result. in that moment. But I think credit to our players, because I think when they equalised, we were very much, the group of players were thinking about winning the game, which you have to praise that mindset. But we could have certainly managed their second goal better from our perspective. We could certainly have done that as a team. But you want the mentality. We scored a lot of late goals last year. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because we're a fit team and we've got the mentality to always want to win the matches, and I embrace that, and that's something we've got to try and keep.
And after the game, I think Jamie Carragher kind of hinted that because the rules have changed, Newcastle kind of like see games out the way they did last season. Is that something that you've had to change because of the rules, or are you still a team that's going to use your intelligence to get results?
But we didn't use that method last year, believe me. That's never been part of my training. Those that see my training will know that's never been part of the game management stuff. Is not something we necessarily teach. I think that's a thing for individual players. They might have that within their game. But our game is very much high tempo, fast actions, and always wanting to attack. So it goes against our philosophy.
And I think after the game, I've heard a lot of supporters that were sympathising with the squad almost, that you're trying to keep players happy, but you said there that you would never make a substitution to keep people happy. It's always with an intention to change the game.
Yeah, you can't make substitutions to keep players happy. That will ultimately, I think, fail me as a manager. It's always, if I make a substitution, it's to try and improve the team performance. It's to try and help us get a result. So the idea behind the subs last week, I thought we were a little bit negative moment. We'd lost the forward momentum of the game, and I was trying to help us win.
Just finally a quick one on Elliot Anderson getting a Scotland call-up, well deserved.
Yeah, great for Elliot, and he's decided to give his allegiance to Scotland, and I fully support that if that's what he wants to do. He's a real talent. He's training very well. He's playing very well for us. He's going to be a big part of our season this year, and a great experience awaits for him.
Martin? Hi Eddie. There was disappointment with the Liverpool defeat. There was incident with your captain, and then there was PSG, Milan and Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League draw. Did it feel like the club got a bit bigger this week and perhaps your job got more intense?
I think it's been an intense week. You can probably see on my face I'm a little bit fatigued this week. It's been a big one for us. But I think the way I try and look at that is that there's always a challenge and always a moment. You're always a moment away from dealing with something at a club this size. That's part of my job. I think I'm robust enough and experienced enough to deal with these moments, while trying to keep my focus on the football and preparing the team as best we can. I'm really enjoying the challenges that you face, and I think that's how I have to look at it as well. So no problems.
And does the scrutiny increase then?
I think the scrutiny is increasing every season, with the media getting bigger, the demands getting bigger, the interest getting bigger. I think it's always there. So that's where, for me, we have to be as smart as we can in the way we're working.
And when you watched the Champions League draw and you saw representatives from Newcastle United there, how did that make you feel, and is that something you want to see every season?
Well, of course, we'd love to be part. I'd love to be, not me sending them, but the club sending representatives from us, because it means we're being successful in achieving our aims. But it was good to see them there looking so smart, and see their faces when the draw came out was quite interesting.
We've got Jacob and Kieran to finish, please.
Eddie, you said in May that you expected this to be Newcastle's hardest transfer window yet. I think you said they're fishing in a smaller pond. Done all your business quite early. Did that come to pass, or yeah?
Yeah, it was a tough window. I've said that many times during the summer. It was very, very difficult to get things moving. Market was very slow. Teams didn't want to sell their players. I think that did change towards the end of the window, as I said earlier. There's seen a little bit more movement, but no, it was a tough window. The pond is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. The same players are sort of on everyone's lips at the same club. So then it's about choosing the right ones for you and trying to get deals done. And I think we've done well in both, hopefully.
And just in terms of overall strategy, some players kind of signed to immediately improve holes in the squad, others who are sort of more good prospects but maybe in stronger positions. Kind of just maybe a word on signing best player available versus signing for need and how you approached it this window.
Yeah, well, I think that there was some obvious gaps in our squad that needed filling. And then, of course, we lost Maxi and had to replace that position. So I think certain things, I think for me, the positions have been what they were. Then, yeah, we're always looking with an eye to, if you get an injury in one position, how strong are we going to be able to deal with that injury? I think we're better placed now than we were last year. And I think there's real competition for places, but that's with a fully fit squad. So we're always at the same time, like every squad in the Premier League, vulnerable to injuries.
And then just lastly, return to Brighton again for the Dan Ashworth this weekend. Been at the club just over a year. What kind of aspects mean that you complement each other well and work together?
I think Dan's done a really, really good job. I think he's got a real experience of building foundations at football clubs, organisations that he's worked for. I think he's done that really, really well here. Obviously comes in to a football club that's growing, and then you need to make good decisions on how you fill certain vacancies. I think he's been excellent. We've built a solid relationship over a period of time where we, Dan's all over every aspect of the football club, recruitment, as I say, academy, women's team. So he's got a vast job to do. But he's done it very, very well, and I think he's been a vital clog in our success.
And Kieran, to finish it off?
Eddie, what will this club and this team bring to the Champions League?
Well, I think you can't talk about Newcastle without talking about the supporters. I think they will bring a uniqueness themselves, the passion, the support, the loyalty, the energy. They will bring the competition. I think they will be an unbelievable addition for the Champions League, and wherever they travel, we will travel in numbers and with huge support. And I think it'd be really interesting to see how Europe react to that. And of course, you think of former years and how well Newcastle's performed in European competition and what energy that brought the city. So hopefully we can see the same again, and we can embrace the competition and do it proud.
I know a lot of the talk will be, are you ready to face teams like PSG? But do you think these kind of teams have faced a team like yours as well, with the intensity you play in?
Well, I think St James's Park is a unique thing, and it comes back to the supporters, and I think that has to be our biggest strength. That has to be the thing that we rely on the most. So the support, the energy in the stadium, and the feeling that those nights will hopefully bring us some lasting memories we can take from the competition.
Finally, has work already started on January and the summer window, even though we're still in a current window?
Not for me. I've not gone there yet. Give me some time to end this one first, but no. But I'm sure behind the scenes, yes.